I am just starting it now.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I see that the recording has started. I will go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Assembly Budget and Finance Committee of the Whole. It is Thursday, March 18th, 2021. We are noticed from 1 to 2 p.m. I'm Suzanne LaFrance, the chair of this committee, and Assembly Member Cameron Perez-Verdia is the vice chair. Let's go ahead and start with introductions. Ms. Camacho, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Allard. Mr. Constant.
Here.
Mr. Dunbar.
Here.
Ms. Kennedy.
Here.
Ms. LaFrance.
Here.
Mr. Perez-Verdia. Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Mr. Rivera.
Present.
Mr. Weddleton.
Here.
And Ms. Salatal. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Camacho. And let me just note for members that the Teams chat is not part of the audio recording. So if you do have a comment or put something in the chat, I will ask you to state the comment into the record. And I want to note too for everyone or anyone joining that the agenda is posted on the committee webpage, and you can get to that by going muni.org, clicking on Assembly, and then to the left, Committees, and Budget and Finance is fairly close to the top, and the agenda is posted there. Okay, so we have a fairly standard agenda for today. We'll begin with a report from the Budget Advisory Commission and then an update on the COVID recovery plan. Then we'll move on to an update on the 2020 and 2021 budgets, followed by an update on the MOA financial status and a quarterly update on pay audits and any other business that the committee might have. We'll touch on legislative and budget priorities and close with audience participation. Does anyone have anything they want to add to the agenda or any other items for today? Okay, I don't see anybody. So we'll go ahead and start with a report from the Budget Advisory Commission. And I believe we have the chair of the commission, Elisa Rodriguez, available.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So I will keep the intro, the summary short. We had kind of a normal meeting this month where we got an update from the Anchorage School District. We got an update from Lance Wilbur. One of the things that I think would be of most interest to this body is that we discussed, I believe it was Mr. Weddleton asked us to look at how might the Assembly use additional CARES funds or similar that were to come to the municipality. And so we kind of started that conversation this month and structured really how we want to go about answering that question. What are the things that we want to look at, et cetera. And so I believe we're going to schedule a special session to really dive into how we might best make those recommendations. We want to make sure, that we're not reinventing the wheel. There are other bodies that are looking at this same question. So we really want to review and distill what are the suggestions coming from other bodies. To what extent do we either agree with them or see some issues? And then we also wanted to take a look at what was done. So what did we do with this last round of funding? What was the anticipated impact, and what was the impact to the best extent that we can kind of account for that so early on? But can we see what was the actual impact of how money was dispersed? And then look at the gaps, see where we're going, what are the different aspects of the economy that we want to impact, and how might we do that? So that's the conversation that we are going to be having, but we really took the time to try and structure what is it that we want to look at, and how do we want to frame our thinking about how we might give that recommendation back to the Assembly of how might the Assembly best spend some of those funds. We also had a member bring up that we really need to be sure that we're looking at a balance between solving the current issues and helping businesses, to recover. So really trying to look at, and we all kind of agreed that the Assembly has done a really nice job of looking at the short term and the long term and having to weigh those considerations. And we wanted to continue to do that with our recommendations as well. So I'll happy to answer any questions, but we're right at the beginning of understanding how we're going to address the question and what is it exactly that we're going to be looking at. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Appreciate the update and all that you all do on the commission. Do members of the committee have any questions?
Weddleton?
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Weddleton.
Sure. So thanks for that update. I think you are on deck to give us the answer to all those things tomorrow. Chair Rivera could clarify.
I appreciate that. I have emailed with Chair Rivera on that. I'm actually not able to attend, but Nolan Clouda, I believe, is going to be in attendance. I'll be coming in and out of that conversation tomorrow, but at the time that we had slotted for myself to speak, I actually have another appointment. But we will try to speak to some of those. And Nolan Clouda and I communicate regularly, so he will be there and be able to give some of the comments about what we've been discussing. I do not know that we will have all the answers tomorrow, but it is something that we've been thinking about for a long time. So I think we might have some discussion points and points to consider for you tomorrow.
Anything else, Mr. Weddleton?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Appreciate, again, you being here and for the work that you're doing. I don't see anyone else in the chat, so we will, as always, look forward to your recommendations and suggestions. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to the next item, B, COVID Recovery Plan. Jason Bockenstead, Mayor's Chief of Staff. Mr. Bockenstead, are you available? Or is there someone from the administration who can give us an update here?
Through the chair, this is Alex Slivka. If Jason isn't available, I guess the summation I would make is that there hasn't really been any activity since the Assembly passed its actions in late December and early January to continue the programs that you had previously adopted underneath the CARES grant program. And as a reminder, that was $156 million. So those programs are ongoing. They continue to be spent down, but happy to try and address if there are any specific questions about those programs. And I'll stop there.
Great, thank you, Mr. Slivka. Do members have any questions or comments? I don't see anybody right now, but I think this might be a good point for Mr. Rivera to address the press release and the schedule concerning the public process for deliberation of this next round of COVID-19 relief dollars. Mr. Rivera, do you want to do that now?
Yeah, thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
Happy to delve into that. So, yeah, I'll just do a quick overview of the press release that went out on Monday. For members of the public who are interested in reviewing this press release, you can find it at the Assembly's homepage at the top of the page. So if you go to muni.org, click on the Assembly, and you'll find it at the top of the page. So as has been alluded to earlier in the meeting, tomorrow begins our phase 1 of our work. I've pretty much divided it, as I imagine it, into 2 phases. First, to do some assessment and review of prior programs, which is going to be a good chunk of what we do tomorrow, sort of a look back, and then do a look forward. That'll also be a big part of the agenda tomorrow as well, with some discussion on some initial allocations. Members may remember that for the last round of the $156 million, we had decided as a body that we were okay with roughly 30% of it, if I remember that figure correctly, being allocated before we were totally done with our process. And so members may remember that we had various resolutions, appropriating resolutions that funded some of these programs that we will review tomorrow before we finished our process. So that'll be a big chunk of what we do on Friday. Then through on Thursday, March 25th is when I have us finishing that phase one and in essence, voting on a resolution to allocate that initial dollars, whether it be 30% or fewer, or whatever dollars the assembly decides. That'll be a discussion point we have tomorrow as well. Then starting at the end of the month is when we're going to really begin phase two, which is really doing a little bit more of a deeper dive and figuring out how we want to allocate the remainder of the dollars to really do the best good that it can in our community. So all of those dates and details are outlined in the press release for any members of the body or public who want to review. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. And I want to add that the press release is also posted on the committee's webpage as well. Any comments or questions on the schedule or the process? Okay, we will go ahead and move on then to item 6 on our agenda, an update on the 2020 and 2021 budgets. Lance Wilbur, OMB Director. Mr. Wilbur, are you available?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Lance Wilbur, Director at OMB. So talking about update on 2020, we are working to get with Alex Slifka's team on a year-end close. I think his team has completed what's called the 13th month and the 14th month, which means pretty much all of the expenses that we have incurred in 2020 we can see those, we will be able to see those very soon, and that allows me to give you an accurate budget to actuals. As of December, some of the things that we knew needed to be cleaned up, we had some of the departments still had dollars identified for CARES funds in their 2020 budget that we have or will be moving to their 21. So obviously those dollars numbers will come off. I think right now I have 5 departments in 2020 that may need a supplemental. Police, fire, we're going to be talking to the administration about those. And the other ones are kind of brand new on the radar and unfortunate just due to COVID, and as for 2 reasons. One of them is they had maybe some unique leave cash out, or they spent time working on COVID and their time was not being eligible for reimbursement. So I think development services is probably going to be at about maybe less than 1% over, believe it or not, maybe internal audit. And I can't recall the third one, but the other 2 would be police and fire. We'll need to work on a supplemental appropriation for those. And so we'll probably be working that through the April timeframe. And as working with Alex's team, I anticipate that probably within the next assembly meeting, we'll be able to give you an accurate year-end budget to actuals on spending. I think overall, even with not including the CARES funds in it, I think we did underspend. But I can't tell you exactly how much at this point, but hopefully we'll have some better information for you. Certainly have some better information for you before your next meeting. So that's what I have for 2020. Any questions before I go to the next one?
Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. I wanted to ask, by next meeting, do you mean this Tuesday's meeting on the 23rd?
No, Madam Chair. I meant this committee meeting.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
Yep. So if I may, Madam Chair, unless there's no questions, I'll move on to how we're doing on 2021.
Sounds good.
So we have all of the department submissions in from both general government and the utilities. As far as first quarter revisions, I know we are management budget. We had some questions with 3 or 4 departments. and have got responses back to most of those. My plan is to share that list, that preliminary list, with the senior leaders, including the mayor, probably tomorrow or Monday. And then as Alex brings in the year-end financial books and the fund balance, we'll then blend the two together and figure out what accommodations we might be able to make in 2021, or at least those that the administration wants to propose. Our plan is really the next couple of weeks is going to be all in at OMB to put all of those pieces together. We have to introduce it on April 3rd. It will, at this point, very likely be an addendum to the agenda. So I don't think we'll have it before for the regular agenda schedule. So I would right now plan on at least it will be done by April 9th. And again, it'll be introduced on the 13th, and then the Assembly will be acting on the 27th. So we did receive some comments from the Chair Rivera on the Assembly's requests. The administration had received those as requested on time. I think we received those last Friday. Thank you, Chair Rivera. Appreciate that. Shared those with the administration and my team, and we're going to work through those and do our best to accommodate those as well. So lots of parts coming together, and, to include revisions to all of our revenue projections. And we're working with Alex's team and Dan Moore in Treasury to make sure that we've got the latest on those, and making sure if we need to make adjustments, we will include those as well. So thank you, Madam Chair, and that's all that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. I'm not seeing anyone in the chat. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, we will go ahead then and move on. We are back to you, Mr. Slivka, MOA financial status.
Thank you, Chair LaFrance. I'm going to have Mr. Moore report on monthly revenues. I will remind people that we're in that period of the year, as Mr. Wilbur stated, where we're still wrapping up 2020, and it's still too early in the year to understand what 2021 looks like. And as a further reminder, our guru of forecasting, Mr. Eric Larson, retired at the end of February, and we are searching for a replacement. So our insight to 2021 will be less stellar than it has been in years past until that position is filled. But with that, Dan, why don't you talk about revenue? Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Alex and Madam Chair. So I'll keep this very, very short. When we last met with the committee about a month ago, the negative revenue variance for general government operating funds was pretty much right at $23 million. As of, I guess it would be 2 days ago, the number is now about 29 million, a little over 29 million. 75% of that change is really due to a standard annual year-end adjustment done by the controller division, where they have to adjust the timing of when revenues are recorded. And those are primarily in the property tax area. So that is most of the reason why there's been a change in last month. There's a couple other smaller reasons that relate to ASD fees. Those came in a little bit short of budget by about 600,000. And then there's a category literally called miscellaneous revenue that's about $800,000 less than budget. But primarily it's the year-end adjustment. And we did expect that adjustment we knew it was going to occur in the month of March. We just didn't know the magnitude of it. And again, it's not that we are not going to realize those revenues. They just won't be realized as 2020 revenues. They'll be realized as 2021 revenues. And we have given OMB kind of the details associated with that, so they can consider that when they do their 2021 budget management. So that's about it. All the other projections we had provided in detail at the last meeting pretty much were very, very close to those projections, thanks to Eric Larson. And we're just doing our best to just try to, keep as much on top of the overall revenue numbers as we can, but we don't have the resource at the moment to dig in deeply to to any like analysis or projection just at this moment in time. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. We have Mr. Peterson in the queue. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I actually sent Mr. Moore an email the other day because when I picked up my paper, there was an entire section in there with listings of foreclosures on properties. And so I was worried that we might have gotten into a situation where we're going to have a lot of foreclosures. And so I was wondering if he could give us his answer that he sent me in the email so that the members of the committee are aware of why there were so many in there and how many we're going to maybe end up with when this is all over. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, I can give an initial answer to that. So when I emailed Assemblymember Peterson, the gist of the email I sent was that they had not done a full foreclosure process in 2020 due to COVID, and so the list would sort of naturally be bigger in 2021 than it was in 2020 because of that. However, there are also some additional potential issues that we're looking into now about people saying that they didn't receive what we normally would send out in early January as a courtesy statement. And this is prior to the foreclosure list. And we believe the file was generated, the statements were generated, but we're looking to find out if there was some batch or portion of that did not get delivered. I don't know at this point. But nonetheless, the list is bigger. I did check with the foreclosure office. It's about 30% bigger. The real statistic that is most important to focus on is which properties ultimately have a municipal clerk's deed performed on them. And usually in a typical year, we'll have 2,000 properties listed on the foreclosure list. And by the time we're done with that publication, we're down to about 50 plus or minus properties that actually still owe money that are subject to clerk's deed. So 99% of all properties, they may appear temporarily on the foreclosure publication list, but 99% of them do get paid either by the owner or by a lien holder. So the city itself, the amount of deeds clerk foreclosures is very, very small historically. And the foreclosure office, which falls under real estate services, has all these statistics going back 20 some years in terms of what each phase of foreclosure, what those statistics are. And we do know at the phase we're in right now with the publication of the list, it is about 30% greater than it was in prior years. And we are trying to figure out, is this because a lot of people didn't get their statement? That would be, I think, probably a primary reason, but we're working with IT to figure that out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. And Mr. Moore, could we get a follow-up when you make that determination concerning the notices? Would you include that to all of us on the assembly?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Peterson, for raising this issue. Any other questions or comments? I do just want to comment that I wish we were moving the other direction with the revenue figure, though I understand that this is part of the annual year-end adjustment. Sorry about that. Are there any concerns as far as, that number increasing more, that negative revenue variance?
Through the chair, this is Alex Slivka. Not really. I think as Mr. Morris said, this happens every year, that revenue that doesn't get recognized in the prior year gets moved into the current year. And so what that really means is, as is expected, that it won't necessarily show up in fund balance, but we expect to receive the money as we have historically in 2021. So it's not a real concern. I would add to what Mr. Moore said, that you'll remember in the work that was done in 2020, we set aside general fund revenue of 23 million, which essentially is where we ended in terms of our revenue shortfall. So that aspect of it is going to be accommodated. What I would add under the section in terms of revenue impacts on COVID, the other aspect, of course, is that payment dates were delayed in 2020, including personal property delayed all the way to the very end of the year. So that may as well have been a contributing factor. But as Mr. Moore said, we're digging in to the source of where this change may have happened, and we will provide the answer to everybody when we have it. The other aspect that I would like to remind members of in terms of revenue impact is that we spent in 2020 roughly $27 million for the COVID response through operations of the Emergency Operations Center. All those funds are submitted to FEMA for public assistance reimbursement. I've mentioned a few times that we have seen challenges at the state in terms of getting those reimbursements processed. Those challenges only get worse, which is unfortunate. That roughly a 2 to 4 week turnaround of submitting requests for reimbursement, which has to run through the state and then through FEMA in DC or wherever and back to us. What was a 2 to 4 week process is now a 3 to 4 month process. And we have spent in excess of $40 million. Currently, we have received roughly $2 million. I have raised this issue with the state administration. They seem reluctant to add resources or change their process. They seem reluctant to recognize that this emergency is different from all their other emergencies. And so I just want to lay that out as when we start to have conversations about, what's going to happen with the next tranche of money that is coming through. It's probably going to be important to recognize that the municipality may have a cash flow issue due to the state's inability to process these requests for reimbursements in a timely manner. And so I just want to remind members that is a challenge. We are dealing with it every day, but as many of us have seen with the state, you can ask for things. That doesn't mean you're always going to get them. And I will stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Slivka. Do committee members have any comments or questions? Okay, I imagine we will come back to this issue of FEMA reimbursements in subsequent meetings, because that's a big one. Okay, we are now on item E, quarterly update on pay audits. Ms. Marshall, OIT Director.
Hi, Susie Marshall, OIT Director. To the chair, thank you. I'll go through kind of a reminder of why we're on this agenda. So payroll audits. The goal was to review all payroll corrections submitted since we went live with SAP on 9/11/2017. We are double checking the payroll correction that was completed then, it was completed without error. And then we were providing the employees and the unions with completed audit reports per person. So that's the effort. And then the current report is that we've had 45 new audits since our last meeting. The current audit results are averaging about 27% in underpayment determination with an average of like $450 per error. As errors are identified, we pay those immediately upon discovery. Our next batch of audits, we are focusing on APD. And I'd say kind of a highlight is that our average, so last time in December, I said our average pay corrections per payroll cycle, So when we run it, it was 22. So before SAP, it was like 50 pay corrections per pay cycle. In December, we are down to 22, and then currently we're less than 10. So the technology is there supporting the payroll team and the rest of the city, actually, right, at city employees. And I think the payroll team and the time team, it's a well oiled machine, and everybody's working well together. So that's my report. I don't know if you have questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. We have Mr. Weddleton in the queue. Mr. Weddleton?
Actually, I was slow on the queue and wanted to ask something from Alex, but so I can wait if you want to finish this.
Okay, we can, yeah, hold a second and see if anyone has questions for Ms. Marshall. I don't see anyone in the chat. I have a quick question for you, Ms. Marshall. You had mentioned that 27% are underpayments. What are the rest?
Overpayments.
All okay.
Yeah, there are some with 0 error, and but there was of the 45 that we did, there was 73. So the percentage was that there were overpayments. So I think at the time when this happened is that the overpayments were made, not knowing exactly what the calculation would be. So they erred on the side of overpayment is my guess. I wasn't around for a lot of that stuff, but I think that's kind of the methodology. So.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Constant has a question for you on budget priorities.
Sure.
Hi, Susie. So I've been involved in some conversations with the clerk, and I don't know if those have been kind of bridged back to you as well in relationship to the conversation about upgrading public ability to follow various meeting procedures. And that's a conversation you and I had over the course of a couple years now. And it's really challenging for me to talk with Barbara about detailed IT things, not because she's not savvy enough to understand, but because it's like playing telephone, without the IT professionals in the room. It's like playing with a Play-Doh as opposed to playing with technology because of my own skills. Anyhow, I am hoping that you can, in the next few weeks, figure out if there is a budget allocation needed for you to work with us to be able to provide a more robust ability for the public to follow the process. And in line with that conversation you and I started again a couple years ago. Is that something that you need budget for, and can I help get it for you?
Oh, it's a great, through the chair. I think what you're asking about is the when people want to subscribe to be able to follow meetings and subscribe to that. Is that what you're talking about? That
yeah, meetings and legislation and committee process, and I'm not sure the functionality that might be there, but yes, that's the conversation we started. Remember, your team did some kind of a breakdown of the various opportunities.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
That.
That was not on my budget review, but I will take that and I will make that as a task to figure out what we could do that if we need budget to assist. Is that what
Thanks.
you're asking?
I mean, I'm sure the clerk is doing some work. I see Felix wants to talk about it. I just want to make sure that I have the subject matter expert in the room when we're talking.
Okay, got it. Duly noted.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. And yes, we have Mr. Rivera in the queue next.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is something that was discussed with Assembly leadership earlier this week. The clerk's office should be reaching out to Susie to see if we can get an update on if anything has been going on with this project. And then from there, you get a better understanding of next steps, understanding that there are a lot of Assembly and IT projects going on right now. and that this one likely would come after some of those other projects are completed. And that, yes, Mr. Constant, you would be part of that working group to work directly with IT on that. So yeah, this was all discussions that have just happened this week, and there should be more to follow soon.
If I might just quickly jump in on that, and then I'll let go.
Sure, Mr. Constant, go ahead.
Thank you. So that's great. It's important to recognize that there are other priorities. And for myself, I've been trying to get this on the table for 2 years. So I'm just going to push a little harder now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. So, Mr. Dunbar, do you have a question for Ms. Marshall?
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll go back to Mr. Weddleton and his question for Mr. Slivka. Mr. Dunbar?
Yes, and I had to step away briefly, so I apologize if this was asked and already answered, but what stage are we at right now in the overall overhaul of the municipality's website?
Oh, we are, through the chair, we are working on we're doing a facelift first, so taking all the existing the way it is now, not changing any functionality, and putting a facelift on it. So right now it's using SharePoint and as the delivering technology. And basically what you can do is apply new templates to have a new look and feel. So right now we've hired 2 additional resources, and we're working through that process, and we hope to have that done in the next, hopefully have well, my goal is to have it done before June 1st. And then from there, we were going to work specifically with the assembly so that we could clean up your site, redo it how you guys want to do it. And but we didn't want to spend that effort until we were done with the overall facelift. That makes sense? The goal is to do that before the administration changes, just to make sure that we had enough resources and focus support to do that. That makes sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Dunbar?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ms. Marshall. Do members have any other questions or comments for Ms. Marshall? Okay, I don't see anyone else in the chat. Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Appreciate your time. We will go back to Mr. Weddleton.
Well, thanks. So, Alex, you were saying that FEMA reimbursement is coming slow, and I missed the amount that we're looking for, and we just got $2 million. And then I guess what I heard was that, the state is going slow because they need staff. We've given the state staff for, in the court system and things like that before. Can you take one of your people, put them in there for a month to get things expedited so that we don't have cash flow problems?
Well, that is an interesting suggestion, and I will see if that is a possibility. I will restate the numbers. At the end of the year, we had spent 27 million and we had received 2 million. We have not received any additional funds in 2021, and we're up to 41 million spent. But I will ask if we can send them staff. That is a good suggestion. Let's see what they respond to that. And just as a heads up, as a reminder, together with encumbered and spent, we're up to about 61 million. You have authorized us to go as high as 78 million. We are hopeful that the money starts flowing in so we don't have to move that, but just as a heads up that if we have to come back to you, it's because we have seen no action. But I will definitely take your suggestion and see whether that helps us, and I appreciate the thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slivka. Anything else, Mr. Weddleton?
No, thanks. Sorry to make you back up.
No, that's a great point about the possibility of lending staff for this effort. Okay, that brings us to F, other business. Anybody have anything else we need to talk about? Or any items for next time? Okay, I don't see anything or anyone. We're on number 4, committee, legislative, and budget priorities. Anything by way of legislative or budget items for 2022, actually, that we need to talk about here? Okay, that's an open standing item, so we'll come back to it each month. That brings us to audience participation. Are there any members of the public who want to participate at this time?
Hello?
Mr. Haberman?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, although if you could increase your volume just a little bit more, that may be helpful.
Is that better? Is that better?
I think that, yes, that's good. You've
Okay.
got 3 minutes.
Okay. Start my timer. My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely public interest. I'll be brief, but to the point. I listened to the meeting. This is a budget committee, and it's committee of the whole, which means the entire assembly. And what concerns me specifically is this. You were dealing with the financial health of the municipality of Anchorage in reports, but the only documents that the public could see visually was a detailed agenda, and second was the process used in a press release, and that was it. It deeply concerns me that the departments provided no written communication presentations, and it was just verbal. And it was not just the department heads that did that. It included also the Budget Advisory Commission. You may be receiving other information on the side from them, but the public has a right to see that information and visually see that information during the meeting, and they should be on the committee website, which you do have. So when we're looking at a very serious problem with dealing with COVID, and it's not going away, it's still with us, and you are in the midst of receiving substantial more money from the federal government, to have a Budget Finance Committee meeting with little written information provided to you and the public is deeply concerning. And I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting, which is tomorrow, except that's a work session for the Assembly, and the public is not allowed to speak unless you allow certain people to speak. Take care, and I wish you all the best. And my time is 1 minute to spare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haberman. Appreciate your participation. You know, I'll just add that for this meeting, we did only have verbal reports and we have not received any documents. When we do receive those official documents, the ones concerning revenue and of course we'll be having the CAFR, those will all be made public. But thank you. Any other members of the public who wish to participate?
Chair LaFrance, this is Alex Livka. I don't want to get into a debate with Mr. Haberman, but I would want to echo what you've said and what I said earlier. We're in a period of time where 2020 is not done and we're too early in 2021. And the information that we publish in print has a high expectation of accuracy, and without the audit being done, we are very reluctant to put printed information. We're communicating what we understand to be our current situation, but because it's not audited, that's why you don't often see printed details. So we use this opportunity to share with the Assembly the current state of the municipality. And let me back up and say, the municipality is in fine shape. We have more than enough money. We completed our tax anticipation note transaction, which we do every year, back in late February at a interest rate of 14 basis points. So what we are highlighting for the assembly and for the public is our concerns going forward. But we manage and will continue to manage the finances of the municipality in such a way as to maintain our AAA credit rating. And so that's a very long-winded way of describing why there is not more printed information, which I would agree we provide it when we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slivka. Appreciate that helpful information. Are there any other members of the public who want to participate at this time? Did I just hear someone unmute? I'll just give it a couple more seconds just in case. Okay, I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Peterson?
Thank you. I just happened to think of a question since they were out hauling the snow off of my street today. Since we have a pretty good amount of snow this year, how's our budget on snow removal holding up? Are we close to maxing that out? Are we over budget? Where are we? Thank you.
Who would
That's
like
you,
to-
Lance. Are you still there?
I probably should have asked this earlier, sorry.
Well, we will take the question and get an answer and share it with everybody.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Great point to bring up. And thank you, Mr. Slivka, for the follow-up. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you all for being here today.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. We are adjourned.